One afternoon, while he thought he was alone at home, he, who was married, was making out with another woman, but when he least expected it, the maid discovers his secret. Startled and pushing the woman behind the door, he demands that she pretend not to have seen anything, and she, afraid, shuts up, while he, in a threatening tone, hands her the panties and demands that his mistress' underwear be discarded. Then his wife comes home and finds her husband talking to the maid. He feels annoyed that she arrived home early, and she says she was very tired and decided to go home earlier. As he is standing in front of the bathroom, she asks if he was going to take a shower at that time, and he gets annoyed once again asking if there would be an exact time for that. She apologizes and asks if he's hungry so she can prepare lunch, and showing complete impatience, he pushes her to get out of the way. And once again, with a threatening tone, he demands that the maid pretend she didn't see anything, and she, scared, agrees with everything. He then enters the bathroom and tells his lover that she would need to leave at that moment. Meanwhile in the kitchen, the secretary finds the boss washing the dishes, and asks her to leave everything there that she would wash, but the kind woman refuses. So, the maid keeps insisting, saying that she would prefer that she make lunch, since her boss loved her food. So she agrees, and stops doing the dishes. The maid, named Rose, says she needed to say something to her boss, but decides to hide the panties from her husband's mistress, and says she doesn't like to see how the man treats her, but the sweet woman replies saying that he acts like that so she can be a better wife. But Rose keeps insisting that she didn't deserve to go through that. So, the boss says that everything has been very complicated due to some problems that she has been going through, but that everything would be resolved soon, and said that she had to finish lunch before her husband arrived and got upset with her. After a while, he comes home apparently irritated and sits at the table waiting for lunch. From the kitchen, his wife notices his arrival and hears him complain about the late lunch. Then, she replies that she was a little late, but that lunch would soon be ready, and asks him to wait just a little longer. And when she goes to the living room to explain herself again, he is nervous and aggressive, gets up and leaves saying that he won't expect anything, and that he's going to eat on the street. Meanwhile, she stays in the room worried about what had just happened. Minutes later, already at his lover's house, he already has a different attitude, totally affectionate, while she is the one who is irritated because he doesn't solve the situation with his wife. He then promises that he will soon resolve it, and she gives him just 1 week to do so. So, he says that he can't handle that situation anymore, and asks her to have a little more patience. Days later, once again he comes home angry and screaming for his wife. The maid says that she is not there, that she had to leave. He gets angry that she left without making his food, and Rose keeps trying to explain that she had to leave early, but would be back soon. He, always dissatisfied, continues to complain about his wife leaving without telling him, and then asks the maid to get out of his way. Sitting on the couch, he continues to complain to himself, but soon his wife arrives. She enters greeting her husband, but all he does is complain that she didn't stay home and prepared the lunch. She then starts saying that she had to go out to do some tests at the hospital, and that's why she would have been late. Then, with a sad face, she hands him the test results. He takes it and already complains, saying that he doesn't believe she would be pregnant again. But to his surprise, he is faced with a terrible diagnosis: his wife has cancer. At that moment, he changes his tone of voice and starts to call her love, not believing what he had just learned. She confirms the diagnosis and also says that, according to her doctor, she would have just a couple months to live. He asks why she hasn't told him before, and she says that she's been trying to tell him for a while, that she's been going to hospitals for days, but he never cared. And he insists, saying that even so, she should have warned him. Then she despairs and starts to cry, not knowing what to do. He asks her to calm down, and says he will do everything to make her feel better in this short time, and what he hasn't done until today he will do. A while later, he calls his lover and says he needed to talk seriously, because, despite having lived something very good with her, he couldn't go on anymore, and kept asking her not to look for him ever again, and that she should forget about it, that he existed, and then he said goodbye to her. He went to the dining room and found his wife sitting in a wheelchair having dinner. Unlike before, he was all affectionate and started serving the food in her mouth, and wanting to know how she was feeling. But she said that she was feeling very weak, and that she was very afraid of everything. So he, trying to calm her down, said she didn't need to be afraid, because he was there to take very good care of her. At that moment, he goes out with her to comb her hair. In a touching scene, he carefully pushes his wife. The moment of affection, however, becomes another moment of sadness, and is devastated when he realizes that her hair have started to fall out. Then, with her already lying in bed, he arrives in the room with the maid, who comments on how pale and dejected she is. Rose asks if she's okay, and he says she certainly is. And after confirming that he gave her the medicine she needed, the maid leaves the room to do her chores. So, he continues in the room taking care of her with all the affection that he had never shown before. He goes to his wife and asks how she is feeling. She, with great difficulty, opens her eyes and says she is feeling very weak. Days later, after having already lost all her hair, while they were talking, she asks him to take her for a walk. He finds it strange, because after getting sick, she never wanted to leave the house. Then she says she wanted to see the stars. And so, pulling out the wheelchair, he gets up to fulfill his beloved wife's last dream. But before leaving, he calls Rose and asks her to go with them. Once out of the house, he keeps worried, wanting to know all the time if she is okay, and after asking the maid to fetch some water from the kitchen, he starts to declare to his wife how much he loved her, and how he wanted things to be different, and that no matter what happened, she would always be the great love of his life. And she said that during all the years they were together, she always wanted to talk to him about everything, but now she didn't have the strength anymore. But he asks her to speak. Then, she says that she asked Rosa to write a letter. To his surprise, she takes a paper and hands it to him. There was written a declaration of love, for all the years they had lived together, a thank you for making her a very happy woman, and that he was and always will be the great love of her life, her prince, the man she loved and always asked God. She thanked him for being part of her life, and for all the love between them, and ended up saying that she loved him so much. He reveals that he was very touched by the content of the letter and says that he did not know she was so delicate with words. But when he put the letter in her hands, he realized that something was strange. She didn't answer him, didn't talk to him anymore. And desperate, he starts calling for the maid. While trying to wake up his wife, Rose arrives and also despairs when realizing what had just happened. The two couldn't believe what was happening, and as much as they called out to her, they didn't see any reaction. And in despair they wept together for the sad death of their wife and kind boss, who so soon left them. Cherish the person you love while there is time. Be affectionate every day, and above all, treat people with respect, because you never know what life holds in the near future.